All right, how's it going, everybody? This is Ismortah, and this morning during my Sunday morning 9 a.m. Central board game stream, in this case, I'll be showing you some more Marvel Champions. This will be part 2 of my unboxing video of the Galaxy's Most Wanted. In the last video, I showed you everything you get in the box and went through all the minutia of the cards, all of the cards except the villain decks. And so the focus today is to show you individually every card in the villain decks. So the reason I didn't share it last time is because part of the fun of playing the game is not knowing what they're going to throw at you, so I didn't want to subject you to that if you don't want to see it. And of course, if you like what you see, be sure to follow here on twitch.tv/Ismortah. Can't catch the live stream, you can always catch this after 24 hours at YouTube over at Shadow Balance Games. All right, let me get going then. Again, so like this unboxing video, so let's show you what is in all of the villain cards. So one thing I wanted to show you first, before I get into that, is to show you, even though, like I said, historically not a fan of how FFG packs their shit, how they packed this was actually really good. Because after you open the decks, like for example, I opened the hero cards, but not the villain cards, they have these flaps, I'll show you with this, underneath that pop up. There's a flap here. And you can use that to hold the cards in place. So until you get more cards to fill this deck box, you can actually use it to hold it in place so the cards don't fly around everywhere, which is pretty nice, actually. Like I had to recommend the last stream, I recommend this box for storing cards. It's actually fits pretty good. The core box, I don't. All right, so like I said, what I'm showing you today are actually these 3 decks. So you actually get, there's 3 times more cards in this shit. Because that's the whole focus of this scenario pack, is to provide you not only additional villains and encounters, but actually a whole campaign that you can play story by story, different decks, and you have this long arcing experience. So yeah, so I'm showing you this today. So this could be more shit. That's why another way is wanting to break it up, because I like the unboxings to be short. All right, so I'm just going to show you all different cards, so let's get into it. I think, though, I'm going to try to open all 3 of these first to see if there's some sort of order to the madness here. So I show you like stuff together. So there's 3 different packages for the remaining cards. And again, how you can tell what cards are which, chiefly, is the color of the backs of the decks. Typically, blue is hero cards, the orange is villain cards, and then purple is the villain. Just so you know what cards you put in a deck. Now, yes, you'll say, hey, but Ismo, there are some hero cards like that you actually do put in the villain decks. That's true, but in those cases, those cards would also be orange, right? So, because otherwise it would be a tell. All right, so I'm just gonna see if there's any sort of order to this shit at all. Otherwise, it's also fine. I'll just show you the cards as I come by. I just don't know if there's any sort of, yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, there kind of is, hard to tell. And then, the purple cards, yeah, so maybe this is the order, maybe-ish. I think this is the order, because this is circle bet. All right, so we'll do it in this order. If it's correct, I don't fucking know. All right, here we go. So what I'm going to show you now with just each of these cards individually. I'm not going to go through the meta of what they are. I just want to be able to show you, be able to see this is all the stuff you get in the box for the villains. All right. Dring. Level 1. So this is one of the villains. Dring, level 2. Dring, level 3. Then here you have Terrestrial Invasion. And I'm going to be holding these up, but I'm not going to be reading through the minutiae. Also, the reason why I'm not going to be doing it is because I don't want to spoil it to myself either. Like I said, part of the fun is, that you don't know how to prepare necessarily for what's coming at you. Badoon ship. I'll hold each of these up for a few seconds so you can read it, or at least be able to freeze frame on it so you can take a look at these on future videos to see how you think you might counter it, or what encounters you might add to custom decks that you make. Because these are all modular too, so you can add these cards to unique experiences or to make them more difficult. You know, the worst thing about it's already bad enough to fight an Armada, but like, let's not have an oppressive Armada. Let's have them be friendly. Ooh, the Collector. So here's a second villain. That's the level 1. Here's the level 2. Here's the level 3. There we go. My spirit animal probably is the Collector, or the Hoarder, I should say. These schemes, if you don't recall, one side just shows how you set it up and qualify to do it, and then the other one is how it plays in game. First I was reading this, I was like, what? Was this a character? No, this is a minion that comes at you. Inconspicuous box. Hopefully not like the box that was in 7. You don't know what I'm talking about? I recommend watching the movie and see what you find in the box. And if you see some duplicates, as you see here, I'm drawing from the deck. I'm showing you every card. So there are a lot of cards. It's cool. I mean, you get a lot for your money. You get new stuff to build heroes, new stuff to build villains and encounters, and a whole campaign experience you can do. So it's actually a lot of content. So here you can see kind of like there was for Groot and Rocket. You know, there's a villain version of the Collector, but then there's also a kind of like a minion version that you can just add him to a deck that you encounter him, as opposed to him being like the main boss. Which means during the campaign, there's like different versions of him. Actually, you know what this is? It's a different version, looks like, of the same Collector. It looks like it's like a different experience. Because these have backs, too. Sorry about that. Or maybe initially it's it does say villain. It's almost like it's a hero card, but it's a villain. The fact that it's two different sides. It's interesting. I don't think I've seen that before. Minions normally just have... It's not even called a minion, it's called a villain. It's not like the normal villain cards that just have, like, for example, a back. So that's why I was like, wait, what am I looking at? Alright, I'm just going to change this so it's easier to grab. So it looks like it is truly another villain card, but it's weird that even at the same level, there's alternate versions or transformations at that same level. That's very interesting. I have not seen that before. Sorry about the zooming. Yeah, double-sided, though, it is an interesting way to flip and have that same experience attached to that one card. And also, from a production standpoint, it's a good way to minimize how many cards you print. The fact that, you know, if you don't necessarily need the back, then use it. Especially if it's carded just like something you reference, or you just pull out and it tells you what to pull. It's like, okay, well, then it doesn't matter what's on the back. It's not like you have to hide the reveal. You just have to go get it. But yeah, as you can see, like, there's just a lot of cards. So that's why I wanted to divide it up. It's like, hey, you get shit, but you get a lot of shit. All right, so now we go on to, I believe this is the fourth villain. We had two different collectors. We had Dring. Now we got Nebula. Sorry. Level 1. Level 2. Level 3. The Art of Evasion. From a design standpoint, like, so if you might know from me talking about design previously, like I'm not a fan of having bordering on cards, but I do think it's interesting how they did the bordering on these scheme cards. The fact they made it look like it was layered papers. I'll show you what I mean. See how you see like different, looks like different things underneath it, multiple layers that are rotated. So if by chance there was a printing error that this slipped up or to the left or something, and it made this smaller, you wouldn't necessarily care because everything's a weird angle and direction anyway, that you don't even know how it's layered. You know, it's not like you expect like ½ inch all the way around or something. It's like stuff is smaller here, bigger here, and you have multiple layers, so it's your eye doesn't necessarily track that, which is, I thought it was clever. Clever way to do it. I prefer just full bleed goes across, like you see here, like for this art, and just crop into the art instead of having this border that can get cropped and then it looks bad. Nebula ship, it's pretty cool. Sorry, make sure you can get the bottom of that. There you go. One thing I'm not a fan of for any reason in the history of ever, is creating stuff that you have to read sideways. I know you're trying to save space. I know you want to maximize game text. You want to maximize art. But this just reads and looks fucking terrible. And you could argue, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it does. My counter argument is, would you read it? Would you read your rules like this? No. Well, then that's why it's bad, right? It's a way to save space, yes, but there's a better way to do it. Like you could have had the card like this way or something, or just rearrange how you put the game text versus the art. There are better ways to do it. Or you could just do it on a different sized card or abbreviate. But God, it's pet peeve of mine, as you can tell. Just check some right quick. Make sure you guys are still with me. Okay. The sound, I mean. But if you like what you see, be sure, like I said, to comment and or follow here on twitch.tv/Ismortah. And again, if you can't catch the live stream, you can catch me also on YouTube at Shadow Balance Games. About like a day after the stream. Yeah, a lot of fucking cards. Like I'm probably like a third through the villain cards. So there's a lot. It's definitely the biggest thing you get in the box. That's basically what you're paying for is a new experience to fight against, because you probably already have your built decks that you want to do, and maybe you don't even care about playing as Rocket or Groot. You just want to do this new villain experience, right? But I am going to start going faster for the duplicates, though, just because this is kind of taking longer. Like, we're almost at 20 minutes, so. The first card, to give you enough time to raid the duplicates, I'll just quickly show you that there's more copies of it. We got a lot of cards to go through. It's interesting that Nebula, like you see, it shows cards like when she's acting as a hero or alter ego. So it's like And that was kind of what it almost looked like for Collector too. Per four, it's almost like they act like a good guy and then they turn bad, or they act like a bad guy then they turn good. It's like it's interesting. It's adding the hero mechanic to villains. But also it would help if I read this. What this is saying is when you draw this as a treachery card, which is in the villain deck, that if your hero is an alter ego or hero mode, different things happen. So it helps when you read the cards. All right, so then it looks like we're at the last villain. And then after that, it looks like it's just all encounter modules. We have Ronan the Accuser. So this is the 5th villain deck. So that's pretty cool. You got 5 villain decks and a bunch of encounter modules, so you can play with the villains separately or in the campaign. Same with the encounter modules. You can take them out and mix them with different decks that you build for the villains. And that's also a technique that you've seen here, how they use color to show the significance. The first time I saw that was actually with Patrol House on the Hill. And I believe I've also seen that with the Arkham games. The fact that if something is active, you see the color, but then something is inactive or spent, then you see the black and white version. I just thought that was a cool way to do it, without necessarily introducing new art, but showing significantly at a glance, which side you're looking at without having to read it. I mean, we're like barely not even to half of these cards yet. Not just because you have a shit ton, like I said, of villain decks, and then you have probably a healthy amount of different encounter modules, right? So far, we've just been looking at the villain decks without the encounter modules that you add to decks. Because again, how you build these villain decks is you have the villain cards, and then you have your obligation that you add for every hero, and then you add encounter modules, and then you have core cards for the villain deck that you can tweak or add into it to adjust difficulty. In addition to the villain itself, you can have it start at a higher level. So there's a lot of variability, ways you can tweak the difficulty once you have min-maxed and are very effective with the deck you've built. Come on, Zoom. Come on. There you go. I remember him saying that in the movie, "You stand accused." You could tell it must be one of his signature lines from the comics. I would be sure. I have not read any of the Guardians of the Galaxy comics, but It's up in Nacris TV. And Zara Kitten, thanks for joining. We're just going through all the cards in the villain decks for Galaxy's Most Wanted expansion. All right, so that's definitely looks like half. So go ahead and start working on the second half. Just get a swig of water right quick. We get into phase 2. Which should be after we get the tail end of this Ronin's cards in his deck to get into the encounter modules. These cards look like it looks like kind of got into the cards that you add into the different villain decks, because all these cards we're looking at like currently right now look like different things in the collector's collection, right? That's what it looks like. Yeah, so side schemes, so these are like encounters you would add. You stand accused. Yeah, when you see some of these cards and you see like a 1 and a 2, like, hey, that's hardly any difference. Yeah, if you just look at it, that you factor adding another tick of a number, you're correct. But in reality, you're wrong. Because think of it more like a percentage. You have something that's doing 1, right? If you go to 2, that means it's 100% more. If you go to 3, that means it's 200% more. So that's actually a huge difference for multipliers. So you say 1 to 2, you're like, yeah, but it's actually a lot. Like hit points, that's when you go more numerical, because you're like, oh, how many hits can I do? Can I do 2 hits at a turn, 3 hits, 1 hit? Determine how many attacks you need. But especially when you're looking at the schemes and the attacks, it's like, that's the difference of someone hitting you a couple times or once to knock you out. So. Like, for example, looking at this guy, you're like, hey, he's got 4 health, 2 attacks. So if you did a 2 attack on him, you'd have to attack him twice, or 2 guys. Whereas if your attack was 1, oh shit, now you have to attack him with 4 guys. So I mean, like, it's a huge difference. May not look like it on the surface, but it's huge. This should go a little bit slower though I mean, not slower, faster for many of this deck, only because for the minions, you'd have a lot of the same minion type. Of which, like I said, I'm just showing you the first card so you can read. Can I get a Star Shark? Look at this. Its attack is a 3, plus it does other shit. I mean, like, that's terrible. That's just terrible. It's going to hit you like a truck. On top of all the other random bad shits that's going to happen to you when it's the villain's turn, right? Or assuming that you don't have any sort of, like, multiplier on bad shit when it does happen. It's weird that they gave you 4 pirate lackeys when you can only have 3 in a deck. That's a little weird. I mean, the most of any card you can have in any deck is 3. So that's very weird that they give you 4 when you can only have 3 in at a time. That's very bizarre. Not sure the point of that. Unless just in this case they're putting 4 in a deck. It's very atypical. Honestly, it's bad design because it goes against the you know, I get why you're doing that because the ratio, you want to have like 40% versus 30% of the cards being, you know, a minion or something. It goes against the rules of the game. It might be confusing upon setup. That's a pretty cool looking card. And it's a blue card too. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, because that's actually something you put in a hero deck. It's weird that's placed here. Maybe it's because when you're playing the game, you're flying around to Milano, so maybe like it's always out or something. I'm sure there's special rules with the campaign. Just thought it was interesting that was snuck in there like that. Yeah, because I was looking at it, I was like, wait a minute. Does not look right. Yeah, you know what? It looks like I assumed the rest of these cards were villain only, and it looks like that's not the case. Looks like at the very bottom of it are just common cards that you can put in any deck. They're gray, actually. That I'm looking at here. So I apologize for that. I'll definitely update the titles of the stream because I thought it was all villain cards left, and I assumed incorrectly. I'll show you what I mean after this card. So, it was just weird how this was put together. Because, like, some of these are one thing and some of these are something else. Like, there's a huge stack here of just common hero cards. That sense of gray, you can put in any deck. Doesn't matter what your aspect is. But anyway, I'll continue showing you the rest of the villain stuff, and I'll end with the bonus. We'll call them bonus hero cards. So I definitely apologize for that. So maybe I'll change the name of the stream or something to indicate that. Whoa, this is double-sided? Double-sided side scheme? Oh, expert mode. Wow. So, oh, I think that's why there's separation, at least for these, at the very bottom, because these are expert cards. They use to raise the difficulty. But yeah, these are commons, though. But these are, not only these commons, they're all, look at the resource, they're all green. They're all wild. So you can literally put these cards in absolutely any deck. and that'll count as you could use any resource to pay for it. That is really interesting. Really, especially when you talk like that. Oh, I see. That's why they're a little different too. They're campaign challenges, is what it says at the bottom. Cards unique to the campaign that you put in, that you probably don't put in just a regular deck that you're making, that you're playing with. That's kind of interesting. Like I said, tons of content. As I drop shit. All right, so this is the last card for the villain stuff. And then I'll show you what I'll call the bonus common cards that are also wild resource that you can add to any deck. Wild resource to pay for is what I mean. So these are all the villain cards, minus one of these that had the Milano. Actually, let me see if I pull that out, because that was kind of atypical too. Yeah. Milano. So add that with these guys. All right, so here are all of the common cards you could add to any deck. Any hero deck, I mean. It's interesting that all of these are treated as a 0, but it says the unit cost is 1. The reason being is normally when you look at what a card's number is and the cost, it would just be the upper left number. But in this case, they're saying that it costs nothing to play. Well, they're saying that it costs 1 to play by looking at unit cost. But as far as putting your deck, it counts as a 0. That's interesting. So there must be something that you do in the game that says, oh, add this many 0 cards, but it costs only 1. But then why make it 0? So I'm just not sure why the separation there. Oh, I think I see why. Because look at the bottom. It's a campaign card. They're market cards for the campaign. So that's why they're separate. Okay. So I'll still treat them as separate because this is the campaign experience. And then these are villain decks, as opposed to what I showed you last stream, which are hero cards. And those you can put in literally any deck you want to make. With the exception of that you can't put the ally of Rocket and the hero of Rocket in the same deck, obviously, because it's unique. Yeah, so these are like stuff you can grab out of the campaign. So maybe like when you level or build your deck like between campaigns, maybe then you can add these cards to your deck or something as you earn them or something, or you can purchase. Maybe. Yeah, because maybe the unit cost is like what you pay for it, but then when you have this card in your deck, it's a 0 cost, wild. That's interesting. Because I was like, why would you separate the two? It's kind of weird. Like this one is 0, but costs 3, for example. This one costs 3, but when you play the game, it's a 1 resource to play. My guess it's cost to buy from the market, and then how you play the card is the same. Upper left. So that's pretty cool. It's like a leveling mechanic. While at the same time, you play with the same character, same deck, but then you can like add shit to it based on what happens. That's pretty cool. Kind of like a campaign, like you're leveling up. I dig it. If that's what it is, that's what it smells like. Like this one costs 4, but 0. But like you're adding a heavy cannon, that just sounds really powerful. You know, probably you add it to the Milano, I would imagine. Yeah, Milano mod tech. And that's probably also why the Milano was separated from the hero cards, because it's probably something that's always out during the campaign. And then you're just like using it, modding it. That's pretty cool. I didn't realize that this would have like a campaign experience. I thought it would just more different decks you can use to fight against. So that's pretty cool. And I have to say, it is good that all these cards do cost nothing to play, because then it's not, if it had a cost, it wouldn't necessarily feel like an upgrade. You know what I mean? Like if you have a deck and you have more cost to cards you draw that you add, then you're padding your deck so you have a worse ratio to get the cards you need, and then you're also wasting resources on these bonus cards. But if they're free, then it's like they're free things that happen on top of what you already planned on doing. So that's cool. So it really feels like a boost. Like these bonus effects happen in addition to your normal strategy for your deck. But then here, this one is a 2. Oh, but unit cost is 6. So yeah, you know, whatever. But you get what I mean. It's kind of like the value for what you pay looks like is worth it. That's what I mean. More value for these cards than normal cards. That's what I mean. Only because you pay for it up front, and which I would assume it's how well you do or the difficulty level, then you earn higher shit, so you're more powerful to do the higher shit. At least that's how I would have designed it. And Nacros TV is saying my Venom can use multiple guns. Oh, Agent Venom. Well, that's pretty cool. I'm assuming that's like upgrade cards. Because if I recall, I haven't played Marvel Champions in a while, I believe, I don't recall if there was a limit to how many upgrade cards you can have out at a time or not. I know there's a limit to how many allies you can have out. You can only have 3 allies out at any time, if I recall. But upgrades and support cards, I don't remember if there was a cap or not. I don't know. Oh, but his text, oh, I see. Age of Venom's got unique text so that he can have more than the limit, which is cool. All right, so that is all what looks like market cards, what I'm going to call it. Well, actually, that's what they call it. This is the ship command, as you can see at the very bottom. And some of these upgrades have to do with the Milano. Well, that is now officially all of the cards. Again, a summary. Here are all the hero cards for the Groot and Rocket decks. Then you had the market cards and your ship. And then here you had cards to add to the difficulty and adding counters. And then these cards were the villain decks, of which there's 5 different villains. And of course the how to play, which is without question the best picture and artwork in the expansion. Well, thanks for watching. A lot of stuff here. Just again, that's why I want to separate it out, so it's 2 similar size streams. But yeah, this is a pretty awesome expansion. I know this is sold out The first time it released, and probably now that's been out over a year. They probably are, I'm sorry, going to their third printing at this point. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I expect a future stream using Rocket and Groot, and at least doing maybe the first mission of the campaign. And depending on how it goes, maybe I'll do more of it. We'll see. Well, thanks for watching. And again, this is Ismortah, and I will catch you next week.